Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name is Christopher Hamer and today I'm going to be taking a bit of a closer look at lighting. I decided to do a series of videos on my steps to creating these videos, and I just wanted to focus on what I think is the most important part first. If you're going to use any form of digital camera, lighting is vital in terms of getting that video right. And in front of me I have what I consider 4 very good starter lights depending on your level of interest and how seriously you're going to be taking your video shooting. You've got small panel lights such as this one, which I've included in various reviews in the past. Then you have medium-sized LED panel lights like this one here, and then you have a much larger panel light which is starting to get a little bit more serious, which is this one here. In terms of price, they range from as cheap as around £20 all the way to about £120 for this one here. But the point is you don't need to spend a huge amount in order to create great YouTube videos. When I initially started out, I was using this panel light and a couple of older fluorescent lights to light my entire scene. But really, you can start off with something like this and a smartphone just as easily. So why is light so important? When you're using a modern digital camera, the biggest factor in terms of quality is going to be what resolution your camera shoots at, and then it's going to be what ISO you shoot at. So the ISO is how sensitive the sensor is to light. In the past, ISO actually came from film, and various different films had different ISOs, but thankfully as we've moved to digital photography, we're able to change that manually. Now, if you're using a smartphone, such as an iPhone, you might actually need to use a separate app in order to change that setting, but it's worth experimenting with just to understand what I'm talking about. Basically, the higher the ISO, the brighter the image. However, what you get is more noise. Noise is digital interference, and generally it's unwanted and makes your videos look less good. So using one of these panel lights, you're going to add more light to the scene, and as a result, you'll allow yourself to shoot at a lower ISO and therefore higher quality, and hopefully get better videos. So let's just talk about these specifically. So I'm going to start off with this is the mini panel light, because I don't think this one's made anymore. This one's made by Viltrox. It's the RB08. I think it costs around £40, £50 from what I remember. And if I take this diffuser off, so the diffuser is what makes the light a bit softer, you can see all the little mini LEDs inside. This is perfect if you're shooting with, say, an iPhone or an Android phone, because you can actually attach it to your phone. Now you can buy cases, or you can get special mounts that go around your phone that hold this in place. But equally, you can actually just tape it to your phone if you want to. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And when you switch this on, you're going to want to keep the phone at probably about 30 centimeters away from you at least, and it's going to create a really nice diffused light on you. Now, all of these lights here allow you to change how bright they are. And that's really important, because what you're going to want to try and do is match this light to the light around you, because if you have this too bright, you're actually going to make yourself far too bright, and it's going to look very odd against a maybe very dark background. So thinking about where you shoot that video is very important too. Now, this Releno light is a PLV S192, and it's already a little bit more advanced. So you've got a built-in battery that gives you about an hour or so worth of use at about 50%. And if I switch this on, you can see it produces a really nice diffused light. You don't have a choice to take the diffuser off, it's fixed in place. But I can change how much brightness this gives out. So this is 100%, and it goes all the way down to, I think it's about 10%, which is roughly the lowest. And as you can see, it's a lot less bright than when I turn it up. And if I just turn it towards myself, so this is 100%. This is what I'm talking about. This is really blowing out the sort of face, so it's far too bright. Whereas if I turn it down to about, I'm guessing that's around 30 to 40%, that light's actually not bad. It's actually adding to the scene. It's giving me a bit more highlights on this side of my face, but it's not too much. And if you have just that, that's more than enough for a video. So you need to imagine you'd have this light, your camera underneath it, and obviously like so. That all being said, this light is quite big. So you can have it on a tripod like this, perhaps on a table around you, but if you're going to strap it to your phone, not only is it going to look ridiculous, you're going to get very tired very quickly because it's very heavy. So what you might end up investing in is a light stand. Now, I've extended this already, but a light stand is essentially a miniature tripod which gets very, very long, which allows you to actually put that light on top of it. And I'm going to use the larger light to demonstrate this. So I've already plugged this light in. If I just turn this around, at the back of here we have a rather rudimentary steel mount. It's not the easiest to use, but it's good enough when you're actually using it. So if I just mount that and put it on here, this light can now be placed wherever I want it to be in the scene. So you could actually have this perhaps a meter or two away from you. You then switch it on and it produces a really nice, very bright light. It is fairly serious once you add something like this, because you're spending over £100 and perhaps you paid another £10 to £20 for the light stand. But if I add the light just here in the corner, you can see what a really nice, strong, diffused light it's adding to the scene. Again, this is probably too bright. I'd probably want to turn this down a fair bit, because again, it's blowing me out a little bit too much. But I think that's giving me a really nice side light. Again, adds a little bit more definition on the right. And it's, generally speaking, a much more interesting scene with more light. Now, at the moment, I'm using this with all my studio lights. And let's be honest, that's not necessarily the most realistic example. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut here for a second, and I'm just going to use that light over there just to give you an idea of how much light it is and whether it's something that you might want to add to your videos. So before we begin, I just want to talk to you about the actual setup that I'm currently using so you get an idea of what we're replacing. So I'm currently standing at my usual presentation table with my background paper behind me. And if I walk over here, I have what is essentially my key light. It is a 120cm diffuser, light diffuser, attached to a rather powerful Pixar Pro LED lamp. Now, across the room, we have my secondary light. That's this one here. This is a similar light. It's another Pixar Pro LED light, a little less powerful than the other one, attached to a 90cm softbox. And last but not least, we have one more Pixar Pro LED lamp, just up there, attached to a Godox softbox. Now this one's just actually lighting up the table and the top of my head, essentially. So that's just adding a bit of extra definition, but it's not doing much more beyond that. Now, what we're going to be doing in order to show you the impact of this LED light is we're going to be adding just this single panel light and switching off everything else, which I think is going to give you a good idea of what it would be like if I just had that one single light and whether that's something that you perhaps want. So let's move over to that. So now you can see in the background is the LED light, and that is now the only light source switched on in this room. There's a small window to my left that is basically providing a little bit of extra light, but not a huge amount. This really is the main light source now. You can see a lot of reflection in my glasses as well. This is normal with a single point light source if it's too close to you or if it's not enough of an angle. It's a problem that people who wear glasses have when they're recording video quite often. So what you're going to want to consider is, can you move that light off to the side, perhaps mount it slightly higher, perhaps just aim it downwards a little bit to create slightly softer light. And it's just about experimentation. There's no right or wrong. You just need to get to that point where you're happy with the light setup that you have. As a result of having a single point of light, I also have much harsher shadows on my background. So it's very obvious. You can see the outline around me where that light is aimed, so you can tell it's sort of coming diagonally across. It's not a bad thing, but perhaps what you'd want to do is take a secondary light like this one, mount it to the side like this, and suddenly that light is already diffusing the shadow light a lot, and it looks a little bit better. It's just something that you might want to consider. Equally, you might want to have a second light like this coming from your left, just to provide a little bit more balancing on the left side of your face if you have that, say, your main light off to the right, and it's a pretty easy setup. The point, however, that I'm trying to make here is that you don't need massive amounts of lighting equipment to light up your YouTube videos. However, having a little bit of it will massively improve the quality that you're able to achieve. This is by no means perfect, but I think it's a lot better than if I either just turn the ISO up on my camera or if I decide just to do them with lighting inside a room. Quite often that's downlights, and I think downlights aren't very flattering if the light's coming from directly above you, and I'm not a huge fan of it, so I tend to avoid it. If, however, you're saying, you know, I can't buy a light, I can't afford it at the moment, and you just say using a mobile, The other option you have is just to record literally in front of your window. So you'd want to mount your camera literally as close to the window as you can, sit behind it maybe a meter or so, and try and record during times of day where the sun's relatively bright but not aiming directly through the window, and you're going to get wonderful light even without an LED light. You could use that setup as well and then have an LED light as a second light just to balance the lighting a little bit, maybe make one side of your face a little brighter than the other, which is generally something that people quite like, and that will give you slightly better quality video. The main thing that you need to do is experiment. I'd say picking up one of these smaller LED lights is probably not a bad shout, but if you can afford a slightly bigger one, generally speaking, you're going to get better results because the bigger the light source, the more diffused you can make it. You could even add, say, a softbox to this, but that's something that we'll cover in future videos when I look at the LED lights that I do use and go into detail about why you may want to use those and what the benefits are and what the issues are. Talking about benefits, the wonderful thing about all three that are left on the table is they're all battery powered. So if you say shoot vlogs with a handheld camera, these are perfect because you can mount them directly into the top. So this actually does have a hot shoe mount if you really did want to use it. Equally, these all have holes in the bottom that you can attach a hot shoe mount to if you want to. And that's perfect for adding extra light when you're outdoors. Whether that's because the sun's actually very bright and you want to balance the light, or because it's starting to get dark and you just want to brighten it up a bit. Either way, I would recommend looking at LED lights as a way of improving your videos. In the future episode, we're going to look at the the lights that I have here and why I chose to use them and what the benefits of them are. Equally, we're going to have a series on my sound setup, looking at the difference between a lav mic, like the one I use in most of my videos, and shotgun mics, and as well the built-in sound systems on modern mirrorless and digital cameras. And then we're also going to look at the camera systems I use, my overall setup, and a more intense look at editing and how you may want to edit your videos. Hopefully you found this useful. If you want to see more of these, check back on a Monday when I'm going to be uploading these videos, or on a Thursday for my usual reviews. Thank you very much for watching. Give this a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye.